Hello, everyone. I'm Katie Kerr, and I'm an assistant professor in the HIIM department, and I will be providing you with an overview of the professional practice experience and the professional practice experience manual through this lecture. We also I commonly refer to the professional practice experience as the PPE, okay? I will also admit that this material can be considered pretty dry, and it's definitely okay to take a break from the presentation and pick it up at another time. However, there really is no way for me to make this less dry. It's an essential component to your PPE, and you must know all of this information in order to be successful at your PPE, okay? So please make the time to go through the entire lecture and manual on your own time. Okay, I also feel the need to preface this presentation with an explanation about why we may be covering things that some of you have years and years of experience with. This lecture and manual is not meant to insult anyone or your experience. It is just really a method for us to lay out all the expectations the Department of HIIM has for you. We do have very high expectations. You're not only representing yourself and your skills, you are representing the College of St. Scholastica and the Department of Health Informatics and Information Management, okay? And then lastly, we have students in the online and traditional HIM program at all levels. And it's really essential that we address all this information in order to accommodate this and to really meet everyone where they're at, okay? So if you have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out to your instructor or me, Katie Kerr. All right, so we're going to dive in here. All right, so as I said, kind of before I hit on this, is that the objective of this presentation is to really familiarize you with the PPE manual, provide you with an overview of the professional practice experience. We're going to also cover the role of the professional practice mentor. We're going to also cover some instructions for you while you're on your PPE, and we'll review some of the policies related to the PPE. Okay, so I think I skipped a slide. Hold on. Okay, there we go. So the manual is really the primary resource for your PPE, okay? And you, as I said before, you need to review it in its entirety, okay? It is the primary resource also for the PPE course in terms of preparing you for the PPE and assisting you while you're on your PPE, okay? And you really need to refer to this constantly while you're at your affiliation PPE. The manual will guide your experience, and it will also provide you with content areas that you need to address while you're on the PPE. And I have a link here on this slide to the manual. Excuse me, we have it online. On a Google site. I'm just trying to think what else I want to say about this. This entire website is composed and comprised of the PPE manual. So we really want you to click on all the links and read all the documents thoroughly that you'll find at this website, okay? And here's just a snapshot of the documents that do make up the PPE manual. And we want you, as I said, to click on each and every one of these and read them in their entirety. Some may have been added between the time of the development of this presentation and the time you view the manual, but we really want you to read all of them. All right, so let's just kick it off here. Let's just talk a little bit about the background of our students that are going out on their PPE. Some of you probably know this very well, and some of you, this may be new to you to know the types of students that we send out. So students are in their last year of the baccalaureate program, or they may be in what we call a post-bac certificate HIM program. And so this is somebody that has already earned their bachelor's degree in another field, but just wants to mainly, I think, sit for the RHIA exam and earn those credentials. And so, and maybe not wanting to go on for a master's degree. And so they have enrolled in our post-bac certificate program, and upon completion of that, they are eligible to sit for the RHIA, okay? All of our students that go out on their PPE have a general education foundation plus all the core foundational courses in health sciences and computer information systems, okay? So if you are viewing this presentation, that is um, in addition, students may have, acquired work experience or volunteer experience on their own, and each professional practice supervisor or mentor will receive a student profile prior to your arrival on site, and that profile includes your resume, a picture of you, and a certificate certifying that you have completed the HIPAA training prior to arriving on site. If there is other information that they want, they can just request it, and we will definitely deliver that to them. So the basics document that you'll find in the manual covers a lot of things, okay? So let's just kind of hit on some of these. So there's some foundational information about the affiliation PPE. I'm not gonna read that to you now or go over that in depth, but just kind of a lot of what I just went over in terms of, why we're doing this. But really, it's the PPE is really an essential component of the total HIM curriculum. Okay, it's a way for students to strengthen their academic experience, and really the intention is for the PPE to integrate and complement the didactic component of the curriculum through reality-oriented learning. So real-world experience, okay, but in a different environment that you maybe currently work in. So the PPE also provides an opportunity for students to develop, use, and refine their knowledge and skills and competencies. The educational requirements, I already shared this, but it's the students, must be in their final year of the baccalaureate program or pursuing a post-bac certificate in HIM. Again, they have that general education and the core foundational courses in CIS and HIM. Some of the areas of observation and or practice that you should take part in while you're at the PPE site. So this is really just a section in the manual that provides a listing of areas that you should consider visiting or exploring, which means meet with somebody in that department, if you can, somebody that is in a leadership position, because this is a management focused PPE, so that would be good. And if you can't, that's all right. I think just getting experience within that department by talking with individuals working there is also a very good learning experience. So the list that we have provided you with in this section isn't, in any way a comprehensive list, okay? But it will give you a sense of the areas that you should visit. All right. We address financial arrangements, and so this section really just kind of, reiterates that each student will cover their own living expenses while they're on the PPE. If suitable housing is located either on the organization's campus or nearby, we do often ask for assistance in locating that housing from the mentor or from the site. The next thing I want to just kind of talk about here is pretty important. It's that students will not be substituted for paid staff. So it's okay for you to spend time scanning or performing ROI tasks or filing or organizing things. However, you should not be doing this for more than an hour or two. Okay, so if somebody calls in sick, it's not okay for them to have you scan for 8 hours. Okay. You are a management intern and should have a foundation in these tasks, but the focus really should be on the management of these areas, okay? And so basically, don't let them take advantage of you while you're there. We want you to learn and explore these areas, but we don't want you, spending all that time working to perform the tasks, okay? The next section, guidance of the student while at the PPE. So while you're at the PPE, you are responsible to and under the guidance of a credentialed HIM professional as a clinical supervisor, okay? Now we do make exceptions to this rule sometimes depending on the type of site that you're going to and the experience that you're getting, but for the most part, most of our PPE's mentors are credentialed. So the site mentor may have different individuals or other mentors to help you navigate your PPE. So for example, maybe your official PPE mentor is the HIM manager, but maybe they've put you under the direction of a supervisor for, you know, certain things, or maybe for the entire time, and maybe they just meet with you, or the manager maybe just would meet with you several times, and you would be directly responsible to the supervisor. Okay, it's really important that our students understand the relationships required to complete the PPE. So if a mentor is assigned, the student really needs to clarify and know who to go to if you have questions or need advice or assistance, okay? So it's really up to you to kind of maneuver and work your way through that and know who you need to go to, okay? The next thing, liability insurance. This is really just to let you know that the college does carry comprehensive liability insurance. And if your mentor or somebody at the site asks you about it, we just want you to know that we can provide a certificate of that insurance upon request. Okay, and I'm sure by now you're all familiar with the need to complete background checks. So all of our HIM program students must submit to background checks. All students residing in Minnesota are asked to complete the caregiver background check through the Minnesota Department of Health and Human Services. And if the student is from another state, the student will complete the background check for that state where they're residing, okay? We also have the health screening requirements. So you are also responsible for assuring that your immunizations are up to date before arriving at the site of your affiliation. And you'll also obviously need to submit the necessary verification to the college through Castle Branch to demonstrate your compliance with these immunization requirements. And also, there may be the medical screening, or the site, I should say, may require other medical screening types of things, such as a drug screen. And so if those are required, we will definitely work with you on an individual basis to get that completed and submit the information to your PPE site. And the second to last section of this section called the basics. Sorry, I didn't know how to call that, or what to call that. Contact with and between the college PPE site and the student. So we just want to let you guys know that Eric and I do take and conduct site visits periodically at PPE sites. We really try hard to work closely with our sites and the mentors and obviously you, the student, to ensure that there's an open line of communication to support everyone. And so a lot of it's done via email or phone, but you know, we will make site visits, typically not while PPEs are happening, but during the summer or times when PPEs are not going on, we'll make trips to visit mentors and just kind of solidify our relationship with them and see what we could be doing better to prepare you as a student to come to their site and things like that. So I just want you to know that we do really try hard to keep strong relationships with our mentors. And lastly, the PPE evaluation. We're going to talk more about this later, but the site manager or mentor must complete an evaluation at the conclusion of your PPE. Okay? All right, the next section is definitions, and this is just something we really want you to read. I'm not going to read those definitions to you, but please just make sure you kind of go over that and know kind of what different phrases and things in the PPE manual mean. All right, the next section in the manual is instructions to the mentor, and this section addresses a lot of things that we ask of your mentor to do, but Eric and I really have no way of guaranteeing that they are going to follow through and do these things, okay? But if you end up with a mentor that doesn't, you know, develop a schedule for you, or have a well thought out first day, those kinds of things. This is a way for you to know what to ask for, okay? So, like I said, we asked them to develop a schedule for you, okay? This is super helpful for you to have so you know what kind of each day holds. I do understand that a lot of times these schedules get changed, sometimes quite a bit, and so it's important that you are able to kind of go with the flow and alter your plans. But they should be clear about the number of hours that you need to be on the site, the time that they or they should set aside time for you to work on your project. And you should also know that if you're not given enough time during the day, you may need to work on your project on your own time, okay? Because sometimes those days get just filled up with meetings and maybe departmental type meetings or interdepartmental meetings, or meeting with just individuals, okay, and interviewing people. So if your days get to be jam-packed, make sure that you're still spending time, when you're not at the PPE site working on your project so that you have it completed by the end of the PPE. They should also have some time for orientation, which of course typically happens the first day. They need to go over the org chart with you. They should really explain who you should seek out when you have questions or need advice or guidance. They should also really be setting aside time for you to understand basic HIM functions, especially for those of you that have never worked in an HIM department before, okay? And we really want you to, explore areas where health information is managed, examined, used, all of those things, okay? And we also want them to set aside time where they can meet with you, right? They should be providing you feedback along the way, answering your questions, discussing meetings with you, after you leave a meeting. If you have questions, you should be given the opportunity to talk with them about that, excuse me, and also to, clarify your project and any questions you may have about that, okay? All right, so other key responsibilities of the mentor. They need to develop a major project for you, okay? We give them the guideline that the project should take you approximately 20 hours to complete. They should really review your resume prior to your arrival, okay? They should identify who your primary contact is and secondary contacts and really who's responsible for what, okay? As I mentioned before, they should provide orientation to the PPE site. They should also arrange for you to obtain parking permits if they're needed, a facility name badge if one is needed. Maybe your CSS name badge isn't sufficient. Any type of employee orientation or access to their information systems or training systems. And we really tell the mentor to expect an email from you, the student, 1 to 2 weeks prior to the PPE. And we'll talk about what that email needs to include in a little bit here, okay? And then this is what we tell them regarding the first day of the PPE is that they, again, should provide you with orientation. They should introduce you to key staff. They should provide an organization tour, discuss the PPE schedule with you, kind of talk about their objectives and your objectives, their goals for you, your goals, your personal goals for the PPE, okay? And of course, throughout the PPE, they should be mentoring you, right? They should be providing an opportunity. Excuse me, a car just drove by. That was very loud. They should be providing an opportunity for you to clarify what you've learned, right? To ask questions, really provide you with ongoing support, review expectations with you regularly. So whether that's expectations for your conduct while you're there, maybe it's expectations that they have for you regarding your attendance at various meetings and your role in those meetings, or of course, the expectations they have for you in terms of your project, okay? They need to talk to the personnel who were scheduled to meet with you, okay, in order to obtain feedback. So quite often mentors do this. They, after you meet with somebody, they will then go talk to them to see how you were, how professional you were, how you interacted with that individual, how prepared you were, those types of things. Okay. They also should definitely be giving you feedback regarding your behaviors, interpersonal skills, professional attitude, knowledge, skills, opportunities that maybe they would like to see you take advantage of while you're on the site, or maybe it's an opportunity that they want you to take advantage outside of the PPE, so like a position. All right, and then also they need to provide, again, opportunity for you to obtain guidance on your project. Okay. So at the conclusion of the PPE, they should really schedule a time to discuss and review the evaluation with you. This doesn't always happen. And if you don't think it's going to happen, I would really encourage you to inquire about that. If you can have some time the last day that you're on the site to talk with them about your performance while you're there. I think, I will definitely provide you with a copy of your evaluation after the PPE, but I think it's nice hearing it come from the PPE mentor themselves so they can explain things, especially if they're not going to give you a meets or exceeds expectations rating. Okay. Lastly here, the clinical agency discount. We want your mentors to know that if they are enrolled in a program at CSS, that they can obtain a 50% discount on one course, okay? And there is a link to that form on the PPE manual website. So you can just direct them there, but we want you to be aware in case they ask you a question about that. Oh, it keeps advancing 2 slides. I'm sorry about that. So the next section in the PPE manual website is samples, CEUs, and background checks. And so the sample projects that we provided are posted to really help the PPE site mentors in developing a project for your PPE. However, by reviewing them, you will also have a good sense of the types of projects that could be assigned to you while you're on your PPE. I know that this is always a point of concern for students because many of you are going into the PPE not knowing what your project is, and I completely understand the fear of the unknown. And so this might help put your mind at ease a little bit. All right. And then there are also sample schedules out there for them to review. We have information about the continuing education units that AHIMA credentialed professionals can obtain by meeting with you and for the PPE mentor for hosting you. And then lastly, we share the background check policy with them. Okay, the next section is instructions to the student. So the final PPE report is really the major assignment associated with the PPE. And so I'm going to explain this further in upcoming slides, but it's really important to note that you must complete the final PPE report during and or after your PPE, okay? So that report should be kind of like started while you're on your PPE for sure, and then you need to have that wrapped up by the time you're starting HIM 4556, okay? So for some of you, especially our online students, some of you may not have seminar course, the HIM 4556 till spring 2. And so you may have a more extended amount of time to work on your PPE final report. While that is nice, it also means that you may forget things. And so I would encourage you to work on it as close to your PPE as possible so that everything's fresh in your memory, okay? And the final PPE report is not due until that seminar course. So you do have that time between the end of your PPE and the start of the seminar course to complete that, okay? All right, let me see what else I want to say about this. Okay, so it's really, this is one thing that I really want to reiterate for you all, is that it's really important that you understand that it is your responsibility while you are at the PPE site to seek out the resources and individuals, information, and the guidance you need to address and develop all the components of that final PPE report. Okay, so the first, let's just go up to that first bullet again and the sub-bullets there. So that PPE report is comprised of a PPE project report and the product that you develop from that project. Okay, you're going to write about in essay format 5 of the content areas that are listed in the manual. You're going to perform a workflow analysis and write about that. You are going to look at different management and leadership principles and how they apply to the individuals you met with. And you're also going to develop a final reflection paper. Okay? So all of those 5 elements there, those 5 sub-bullets make up that final PPE report that is due in seminar. Okay, if you have any questions about that, do not hesitate to reach out, because I know that that has been a point of confusion in the past for students. All right, so continuing on with more instructions for our students, a student evaluation form is going to be emailed to you midway through your PPE. So please keep your eye on your CSS email while you're on your PPE. There are 30 points associated with the completion of that student PPE evaluation, okay? And so really what that student PPE evaluation is looking at is just the, you know, how do I say it? The fitness of that PPE site for hosting one of our students, okay? And kind of how your experience went there, okay? And next, journal entries. So while you're on the PPE, you are required to make a total of 4 journal entries within the PPE journal discussion forum that I have set up in Blackboard, okay? Your PPE site mentor will also be completing that evaluation on your performance, and this will also be emailed to your PPE mentor kind of midway also through your PPE. So typically the second week or towards the end of beyond, a little beyond the midway point, I should say. So once we receive the evaluation, you'll be given a final grade for the course. And so if it's not received by the end of the term, what we do is give you a grade of IP or in progress. And then basically we reach out to the mentor and continue to reach out until we receive that evaluation. And then once the evaluation is received, the grade will be updated to your final letter grade. Okay, so this goes back to kind of the previous slide when I was talking about when, you know, that you really do need to make time to meet with your mentor, or they need to make time to meet with you and provide you with feedback. And again, this is where I would encourage you to ask them to go over the evaluation with you in person before you conclude your PPE. All right. So this is where that email comes in that I mentioned earlier. So approximately 1 to 2 weeks prior to your PPE, you should send an email to your PPE site mentor, okay? And we will provide you with their contact information if you don't already have it. And so in that email, we want you to introduce yourself, of course. We want you to confirm the PPE site address. This is really important for larger sites that have multiple campuses, multiple buildings. You never know where HIM is going to be housed, and so you want to confirm the address that you need to report to on that first day, okay? You should identify, excuse me, you should identify an arrival time and meeting place for your first day. Okay, so is your mentor going to meet you in the lobby? Do they want you to maybe check in at the front desk and they'll come get you? Whatever the mentor wants, you should inquire about that. We also, sorry, It's getting late. We also want you to inquire about who to contact should an emergency arise. Okay, so maybe you get a flat tire or you're lost or there's bad traffic. Anything can happen. And we want you to get their phone number. And so sometimes just explaining that especially if you're new to the city where you're doing your PPE at, um, you know, anything can happen. And so asking them if they can provide you with an emergency contact if anything should arise on your first day, in terms of, on your commute there, that would be good. Okay. You can also inquire about the PPE project and if there's any preparatory work that you can, complete ahead of time or in advance of your arrival on site. Sometimes mentors will have that done and ready to go when you reach out 1 to 2 weeks ahead of time, and sometimes they don't. And so that's okay, but at least you're kind of prompting them as well to, if they haven't thought about the project, that they need to start thinking about the project, okay? And so maybe there's other things that you want to address in this introductory email, and that could be maybe whether the PPE site has a workspace for you with a PC. Sometimes they have that already for you, and other times they just don't have the space. And either way is okay, but I would advise you to bring your laptop or tablet with you that first day until you see what they have available for you. And some of you maybe just would prefer to use your laptop or tablet anyways. You might also want to inquire about the dress code and, of course, lunch. So, excuse me, depending on where you're housed, maybe there is a cafeteria or maybe there's just a break room. And so sometimes that's important for that first day to just know what to expect. All right, more guidance, more instructions to the student. So really, this is kind of going over some expectations that we have for you. So we expect that you're going to report to the affiliation site each day at the agreed upon time, okay? You should, this is also very important. I would really like you all to send me, the academic coordinator of PPE, a text message or an email after you arrive on site, just telling me simply, I made it. If it's a text message, maybe make sure you tell me, hey, Katie, this is Jane, and I made it my first day. Okay, so it just kind of puts my mind at ease knowing that you have arrived and you're there. Okay. We also, of course, want you to follow any kind of protocols or policies that the organization has about breaks, parking, cell phone usage, computer usage, dress code, and really all the PPE site policies while you're there. So definitely make sure that you familiarize yourself with those, okay? Are any problems or concerns, please bring it to the attention of your PPE site mentor. Katie Kerr, I am available to consult with should you want to discuss the issue before discussing it with your PPE site mentor. And I'm very happy to meet with you before that, but please don't reach out to me with your concern or problem unless you have a kind of plan in your mind, or you have maybe already talked with your mentor about the situation, okay? So I'm really going to look for you to address the problem or the concern with your PPE site mentor before I step in, okay? So, just, take those professional steps before reaching out to me, and do as much as you can to address the situation. And like I said, I'm more than happy to consult with you before you do address it. So just let me know. All right. You should definitely wear your CSS student identification badge at all times. Some sites may have you wear their site identification badge instead, and that's just fine. We just want you to be identified there. Please also avoid being absent from the PPE. We do have an absence policy, and we'll discuss that more in depth later on in this lecture. Okay, students have become ill while they've been at the PPE site, and so it's important that you carry proof of your health insurance with you while you're there. Okay. Um, Also, during the seminar course, so HIM 4556, you will be giving a presentation on your PPE. Okay, and during that presentation, you will provide an overview of the PPE site, the department you're in, your project, and either the workflow analysis you conducted, or you'll be explaining 2 of the content areas you explored. And lastly, you're going to share your biggest lessons and challenges that you encountered or that you learned while you were there. So take good notes, and share those unique experience or aspects of these elements during that presentation. We love to hear little stories, and so those are things that help make your presentation more interesting, and yeah, we just like to hear about those. The other thing is that travel to other sites should be expected. In this day and age, we find that most students are traveling to other sites while they're on their PPE. And so this is especially true for large health systems that have multiple, um, campuses and things. And so you are going to be expected to arrange for your own travel to these sites and to pay for the travel expenses associated with these experiences. And so I know that sometimes that can be overlooked in terms of parking fees and maybe gas and mileage and all those things. And so make sure you keep that in mind as you're going into the PPE, that you kind of plan ahead for that, okay? It's also important to note that the Joint Commission requires healthcare organizations to track health screening exams for interns. And so this isn't a requirement of the college. It's really a Joint Commission requirement. And so we ask that interns carry a copy of their health screening exam, or that you maybe want to make a copy of everything that you submit to Castle Branch in order to have a copy available should they ask that of you. And so it's kind of, we've seen it where maybe they're just kind of doing a random audit on interns, and a compliance officer or somebody may come up and ask you for your health screening exam. And so you just want to be prepared and be able to provide that upon their request, okay? And then, of course, lastly, federal and state background checks are required, and copies of these can be provided to them upon request. So either Eric Nordgren or I can help you with that. Okay, so some of this stuff again goes with, I should not have to be saying this, but we just want to make sure everybody understands all the expectations. And so we do expect that you will always maintain professional behavior while at the PPE site. And some examples of behavior that is considered unprofessional includes, of course, possession or use of alcohol, or being intoxicated while at the PPE site, possession or use of a controlled chemical substance, except one that is prescribed to you by a doctor. The next one I wanted to talk a little bit more in depth about is voicing unsolicited critical comments about the facility, health information department, or personnel at the PPE site. The HIM community may seem large, but in reality, it is a small and close-knit community, and everyone knows someone, okay? So talking poorly about a site mentor and a PPE site has come back to hurt our students in the past. And so it's really important to not speak poorly about your experience. And if you do, please be careful about who you choose to share it with, okay? I have very specific experiences with students that have done this and received calls from mentors telling me that our students have spoken poorly about the experience or the mentor or another employee, and it just is a really unfortunate situation and does not speak well of our students and our program. It's just a really negative reflection. And so Just please keep that in mind, okay? Also, I want to mention that unsolicited critical comments means that you should not freely just share your thoughts and opinions during meetings at the PPE site. You should simply listen, and if you are called upon or asked for your thoughts and opinions, please share them in a professional manner, okay? We don't want you to be that outspoken intern that is kind of a know-it-all, okay? We want you to, you are there to observe. You are the student. And so I know many of you may have years and years of experience, and I do hope that you share that when you're asked, okay? And also, of course, in a professional manner, okay? Continuing on with this list of unprofessional behavior, knowledgeable and purposeful violation of a facility or department rule or regulation, of course, violation of confidentiality of patient information, violation of the confidentiality of discussions or employee discussions. This is also something I'd like to elaborate a little bit on, is that if a manager or supervisor brings you into a management discussion about an employee or maybe an upcoming challenge or change that is going to be made that will impact employees, it is imperative that you keep that information confidential. Just whenever you leave those discussions, just know that that information does not leave that room, okay? The other thing is maybe you're invited to sit in a medical staff meeting or another more confidential meeting, and you may be given materials to review while you're at the meeting. Sometimes they collect those at the end, and don't be offended by that, or if you're asked to maybe sit along the side of the room or in the corner during those, just consider it a great learning experience and a privilege that you were invited to be present during that meeting, okay? So any violation of these professional behavior standards could result in immediate termination of the PPE and or subsequent failing grade for the course. And in severe cases, it could lead to releasing you from the HIM program, okay? All right, so I mentioned the content areas before because they are part of the final PPE report. And so let's just kind of talk a little bit about them, okay? So the document titled Content Areas and Interview Questions really addresses the areas that can be explored while you're on your PPE. And then what we've done is provided you with some interview questions that you can use when you meet with professionals in these areas while you're at the PPE site, okay? And the content areas listed on the document correspond with, HIM curriculum, and we go above and beyond that curriculum. We're finding that HIM professionals are just taking on more and more roles outside of the traditional HIM department, and in order to accommodate all these roles, we have a very long list of content areas. And so make sure that you take the time to go over all of those content areas so you're familiar with them, okay? Because maybe when you're on your site visit, maybe they say, oh, hey, do you want to quick just meet with so-and-so in the quality department? And maybe you weren't prepared for that. And so you can go to this list of interview questions and look to see if there's questions or a content area related to the quality department, okay? All right. The other thing is that these interview questions can be used to jumpstart conversations with professionals that you meet at the PPE site. Some of them are pretty basic, and of course some of them are more specific. And so, like I said, just familiarize yourself with them and know what's available to you. It's also important to go into these interviews and meetings as prepared as possible. So for example, if you know that you will be meeting with the HIPAA privacy and security officer tomorrow, then tonight you should take the time to review the questions on that content area document, and go over the questions that are related to privacy and security. Oh, and then Of course, develop more questions to help you carry the conversation, okay? It may some of these meetings may require you to do your own research because maybe it's an area that I don't have on the content area document, okay? And so we just want you to be as prepared as possible going into those meetings. Um, you know, your preparedness for those meetings really demonstrates your engagement in the conversation. You know, if you have questions already prepared, that's going to really look good and look better than if you came in with nothing, right? And you're stumbling for questions. And so it's also going to demonstrate an appreciation for that interviewer or interviewee's time, okay? It also demonstrates your interest in them and their role, right? It's a way to demonstrate respect for them and for their time, okay? So be prepared. And lastly, at the very bottom of the document, you're going to find a short list of other content areas to consider. And so as you work to complete your final PPE report, you'll be selecting 5 content areas to write about, which I talked about earlier. And you may want to consider something on the list, or you maybe you found something else extremely interesting and it's not on the list, and that's okay. You can go ahead and address that as one of your content areas. The most important thing is that you can address the writing prompts outlined in the instructions for the final PPE report, okay? So make sure you're familiar with all of those things. And of course, if you have any questions, you can run your ideas past me, the academic coordinator of PPE, okay? Oh, of course, I did that again. Okay, so the purpose of the final PPE report, this is just a way for me to reiterate that. It really provides evidence of your ability to apply and integrate classroom instruction at the PPE site and demonstrates your accomplishment of the learning outcomes that have been established for the PPE. Okay, so the learning outcomes are next here. We want you to develop technical skills and professional communication in a work setting, understand industry and PPE organization structures, culture, and ethics. We want you to be able to apply and reflect on the connection to academic theory and practice. We're hoping that the PPE will strengthen your critical thinking, systems thinking, workplace skills, problem-solving skills, and management skills through the PPE. We want you to be able to develop a greater awareness and appreciation of yourself, others, and social responsibility in a work, career, and global context. We want you to further develop skills involved in lifelong learning, which are curiosity, independence, initiative, reflection, and transfer. And so I have a definition of what transfer means there. And lastly, we want you to establish a network of professional contacts, mentors, and references. Okay? All right, let's dig into that final PPE report and the elements that comprise that, okay? So the final PPE report should be submitted as an MS Word document. It should be double-spaced, 12-point font, Times New Roman or Arial font is preferred. We would like you to have a cover page. The cover page should have your name and address, your name and the address of the PPE site, the name and title of the PPE site mentor, and the dates of your PPE, okay? There should be a table of contents for the entire report that includes page numbers. The content of the report should include the following sections. The first section is the PPE project, okay, in which I have listed out here. This component of the final PPE report is worth 40 points, and this component of the report should provide the PPE project information document, which you're going to find in the manual. It should provide an introduction and brief overview of the project, your action plan, the methodology you use to complete the project, the results, recommendations, or findings from the project, and then your deliverable. So whatever that end product is, we want to see that. Also, sometimes PPE site mentors will ask that you present your final project or your PPE project, sorry, to the department. Maybe it's just to them and one other person, whatever it is. But if you are giving a presentation on your PPE project, then I would like to see those presentation slides and any other supporting evidence that you have. And of course, keep track of your references and resources that you use to develop your end product and work through this project, okay? The other thing is I want to mention the very first bullet at the top. If the project contains PHI, please make examples and mock documents to demonstrate the data used to complete the project and the deliverable. So in the past, maybe we've had students that were analyzing a specific report. If you can simply, create a kind of a prototype of that report in maybe Excel or something else that just has very, like fake information, that is fine. We just want to get a sense of the type of data that you were analyzing. And so again, if you have any questions about that, and what that might look like for your project, do not hesitate to reach out to me. All right, so next is the 5 content area essays. So this is the next section in that final PPE report, okay? So you will take and select 5 content areas and really just do a deep dive into them, and you're going to address the writing prompts that I provided for you in the instructions, okay? The next component or element of the final PPE report is a workflow analysis. So you will complete a workflow analysis by observing a department/organization workflow. You will develop a workflow diagram, and then you will analyze the workflow for areas of improvement, such as redundancy, bottlenecks, rework due to errors, etc. And so then you're going to summarize your findings and propose a solution to remedy those areas of opportunity that you identified, okay? So that is that process analysis report bullet that you see listed there. The 4th section of the final PPE report is really focused on leadership and management styles and management functions. So you're going to conduct an interview with your PPE site mentor or another manager or supervisor at the organization. You're going to share the questions that you asked that manager or supervisor, and you're going to provide a summary of their responses. Then you're going to develop an organization chart. Please do not submit a copy of an organization chart that was provided to you. We are looking to see that you can develop an organization chart, okay? You want to pay close attention to the instructions that are provided about that, okay? Lastly, you're going to assess the management functions the manager or supervisor is performing and not performing, okay? And again, there's really good instructions about how you're going to go about that in the manual. And then lastly, you will develop a reflection essay on your PPE experience, okay? It's really important that you pay attention to the grading rubrics that I provided after each set of instructions on the final PPE report instructions document, okay? And the final PPE report is worth 184 points, and the breakdown for each component is listed on this slide and the previous slide. And so if you have any questions about that, do not hesitate to reach out. Next, let's talk about the student absence policy, okay? So if you're unable to be at the PPE as scheduled, you need to notify that PPE site mentor as soon as possible, okay? Or that emergency contact that was given to you in that email that you sent before you went out on your PPE, okay? Excused absences are, if you're ill, if there's a death in your immediate family, or a family emergency, okay? The PPE mentor has discretion on whether the time that you missed can be made up, okay? Sometimes that's really easy to do and other times it's not. And so we kind of leave it up to the PPE mentor to make that determination, okay? Excessive absences is 2 scheduled days during the affiliation. And so obviously we prefer that you don't miss any days, but if you do, 2 days we consider to be excessive, okay? And excessive absenteeism or tardiness will be reported to the ACPPE. That is me, the academic coordinator. And excessive absences will also necessitate rescheduling the PPE at the same or a different facility. Okay, so please do your very best to stay healthy and to be present during your PPE. All right, so I'm just going to provide a little summary of the termination of affiliation policy for you here. So it is really unfortunate that we have to have a policy like this in place. However, these are things that have happened during the past with our PPEs, and so we really do have to address them. We want you to conduct yourself in a professional manner at all times. Of course, comply with policies and procedures of the PPE site, the HIIM program, and the College of St. Scholastica. PPE sites reserve the right to dismiss students immediately for violations of professional behavior policies and/or a pattern of unprofessional behavior, ethical breaches, unethical behavior, violations of site policies, unsafe behavior, criminal behavior, including but not limited to breaches of confidentiality, theft, billing fraud, and alcohol or drug abuse or use. Okay? If you are dismissed from the PPE site, you need to report it to me, the academic coordinator of PPE, immediately. Okay? Failure to show up at the PPE site at the arranged time frame, unless there is a verifiable emergency, will result in immediate failure of the HIM 4555 or PPE class. It may also include dismissal from the HIM program. Okay? You are not to alter the dates and times of your PPE. Okay, you need to work with Eric Nordgren on any changes that need to be made to any of your dates or the times that you have scheduled with your mentor. Okay, that please do not take it upon yourself to set up different dates for your PPE. Also, a PPE cannot take place without a fully executed agreement between the PPE site and the College of St. Scholastica. If you start the PPE without an agreement, you will fail the course and you may be discharged from the program. Okay? All right, now I've gotten through all that harsh information and things that I have to cover. Let's end this thing. So if you have any questions or concerns about the PPE manual, the guidelines, policies, and procedures, again, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or whoever is teaching your HIM 4555 course. We are here to support you in any way that you can, and we want you to have the best PPE possible. So with that, I will end this presentation and you can get on with other more fun things. All right, thanks, bye.